to talk about the details of my sister's crash because of the gravity and pain and suffering that my sister endured. This kind of pain and suffering that no one, no mother, no father, no sister, brother, friend, or lover, any human being should go through. As a family, we have decided it's time to share Chanel's story and her truth. We are no longer hiding from the pain because we know that facing this emotional pain is nothing compared to what Chanel had to go through. Chanel mentioned in one of her Instagram posts that my mother always spoke her mind. Yet until now, my mother has kept silent and focused her energy on Chanel's health, passing, and necessary transitions of losing a child. My mother tried to find peace amidst the tragedy. During this time, I have also been digging deep, searching for the gift beneath the grief. Although this service is meant to celebrate her life, we cannot fully honor her properly without sharing the truth of how she died. Chanel lived her life with intention, heart, and commitment to unconditional love. Our desire is that Chanel's violent death was not in vain, but for a greater and higher purpose. A call for change, a call for accountability, and a call for justice. This is a story I never wanted to write. This Memorial Day weekend of 2021, a community and several families around the world grieve and mourn the loss of a truly unique and impactful soul, Chanel Garcia. This isn't a story about an individual who served in the U.S. military, but it is about an individual who served her community in ways that have inspired and have moved the hearts of many, and will continue to do so for years to come. When I Googled my sister's name, I hoped to find her amazing YouTube videos of her singing and being silly. And instead, I found the first page filled with online magazines and blog articles that described her death as an unfortunate accident. And at the bottom lists general statistics about motorcycle accidents. One of the first titles read, Chanel Garcia sadly dies in an accident with a driver under the influence. I wanted to take this time to share what I know is true about this incident and also share the perspective of the impact that this has brought into myself, the rest of Chanel's family, friends, and loved ones. She is not another motorcycle statistic. This was not an accident due to her riding her motorcycle, but a direct result of someone's negligence, recklessness, rebellion, an overt lack of care or consideration for rules of the road and basic responsibilities of a licensed driver. This is still an active investigation, and the next hearing will be on August 25th. First, these are the facts that I know to be true about the incident. On May 31st, 2021, my beloved sister Chanel Garcia was stopped on her motorcycle at the red light traffic signal at Huntington Beach Boulevard around 5:58 p.m. with 5 other vehicles in front of her. Christopher Ellis Johnstone was driving a Chevrolet Tahoe SUV and failed to yield and collided with the rear of Chanel's motorcycle. He was driving over the speed limit at such a rate when upon impact, the motorcycle was pinned between his truck and the car in front of her, and her body was trapped under his large truck. This caused a domino effect and damaged 6 vehicles in total, including my sister's motorcycle. The crash resulted in the closure of a section of Beach Boulevard on the southbound side between Slater Avenue and Newman Avenue for several hours. An ambulance was called and treated Chanel on site and then transported her to UCI Medical Center for immediate critical care and treatment. One blog article reported she had minor injuries, but they were incorrect. In addition to several cuts and severe bruising to her body, her leg was shattered, her pelvis crushed, her arm broken, and her brain severely damaged upon impact. Johnstone was arrested and charged on the scene with driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol, causing bodily injury and possession of a controlled substance, and attempting to conceal and destroy evidence. She died on the morning of June 4th, 2021, After Chanel's death, the charges against Johnstone have been amended to include gross manslaughter. This isn't what was included in the story. The four of us, myself, my mother, and my two younger sisters, all slept on the tiny fucking bench in Chanel's ICU room doing our best to stay by her side every moment through it all. She had several friends and family who came to visit her while in ICU and offered their help and support. In less than 48 hours, Chanel and her dearest friends and family raised over $28,000 to help with the medical bills and offered their healing thoughts for her recovery. We organized a prayer and song circle outside of the medical center's lawn for Chanel in hopes that our loving prayers would be answered for her healing, for her miraculous waking up. We fought for every chance to give Chanel's brain a chance to reduce in swelling, but it was inevitable in her defeat. When they described the damage to her brain, I realized she would no longer have the quality of life she deserved. When Chanel was treated at the UCI Medical Center, the resident team did their best to save Chanel, but her condition was so critical and her future was in question. The trauma to her brain impact was so severe that they removed a part of Chanel's skull to release the pressure building in her head. She had 2 shunts that drained her blood into collection containers beside her bed. She had a tube that helped her breathe. The doctors induced her into a coma and put her on 11 or more of the strongest pain medications they had to keep her alive and comfortably out of perceptual pain. Her leg was fractured and broken, with her tibia sticking out of her skin. Her vascular system was endangered and threatened to kill her muscles to the point where they had to amputate her right foot to save her kidneys from failing. The doctors had to remove her spleen and left her abdomen open for 2 days because she was not stable enough to undergo extensive surgery. The brain swelling was so severe that it damaged her brainstem and herniated, pushing one part of her brain to the other side of her head. Her hypothalamus was damaged and could not create the necessary hormones to regulate thirst, hunger, temperature, or homeostatic regulation. On the 4th day of her hospitalization, the group of doctors held a family meeting and informed us of the gravity of her injury. One of the doctors told us that there was nothing they could do for her. If we chose to continue treatment, she would have been permanently paralyzed on one side of her body. She wouldn't be able to draw. She wouldn't have been able to play guitar. She wouldn't have been able to sing. She wouldn't be able to interact with us, to be conscious of the beautiful environment that she's created and that she loves, or even breathe on her own without life support. Due to the amputation of her leg and the abdominal surgery, she would be highly susceptible to infection that could kill her any day. If we wanted to continue treatment, it would be solely to keep her body comfortable and out of pain. If you knew Chanel, you knew she was one of the wildest and most freest souls this world has ever had. And that wouldn't be a life Chanel would want. We wanted to honor Chanel's spirit by releasing her from her body's suffering, so she could be free to roam the world as she wants, with the wind, nature, with the water. The drugs that she were on was making her whole body swell. Her kidneys unable to filter for itself, to the point where she was unrecognizable, laying there on that table. On the early morning of June 4th, we gathered in Chanel's ICU room with her favorite guitar, and we sang to her favorite songs, and we sang the songs that she had wrote. We stood around her bedside, gently stroking her skin and tenderly speaking our appreciation, adoration, and infinite love for Chanel. We stood by her all night till 1:50 a.m. until her last breath. We prayed for her safe and peaceful passage and asked for our ancestors, guides, and angels to be with her. It's not surprising how many lives were touched by Chanel. Many of her closest friends and coworkers that have shown up to support the family at this time has been heartwarming and endearing. Thank you so much. The love that for Chanel expands to an entire community and reflects the powerful wave of love that she brought into the world. She was someone who always strived to be her best, to take care of her loved ones, and to lead with heart, courage, and love. Christopher Ellis Johnstone has casted a shadow upon Chanel's light in this world. Although Chanel's night will never be truly dimmed, the world will never know and never be the same, and they will never know the greater impact Chanel's life would have made. This crash was preventable. This was no accident, but a violent result of negligence and rebellion. Christopher Johnstone has been charged with previous counts of driving without registration, without insurance, and counts for reckless driving. Sorry. His consistent behavior of rebellion shows his carelessness and his disregard for life, for his own and for others around him. My sister wasn't even on a freeway, but riding around familiar territory on a cross-section in a community area where she felt safe. She was stopped at a traffic light. How fast do you have to be driving to damage 6 vehicles ahead of you and end a life? He had been charged for driving without insurance in November, and he had months to get it done, but he didn't. All he had to do was choose not to drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol, but he didn't. All he had to do was acknowledge the large stop sign ahead and the 6 vehicles stopped ahead of him, but he didn't. All he had to do was press the brakes and slow down, but he didn't. My sister Gabby likened his behavior to waving around a loaded gun and pointing it at people carelessly. Each choice he has made led to my sister's ultimate end, and she had no choice in that matter. After Chanel's passing, the charges against Johnstone have been amended to include gross manslaughter. He has been sentenced to a luxury resident rehab center where he must be retained under court order. He pleaded not guilty, and the judge refused to increase the bail. This is clearly not a fair sentence for someone who has been charged with manslaughter, for someone who lives with disregard for the law, for someone who has disrespect for life. In addition to the charges of driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, driving over the speed limit, and attempting to conceal and destroy evidence, there has been a repeated dismissal of his crimes and his reckless endangerment, and ultimately the death of a treasured and cherished daughter, sister, and human being. This has revealed to us the justice system's failure to prevent a DUI crime as a crime against their own city, as well as a killing that is a crime against humanity. With repeated negligence of the system and the city conspires against the people. Those are Gabby's words. For those who know me, Chanel and our family, you know that we are loving, kind, and understanding people. From the most unconditionally loving place in my heart, I believe in this moment, love is calling for accountability and responsibility. Although I want to believe this was a one rare incident, I know that is not true. Chanel and Christopher attended the same high school and were the same age. It was known that Christopher even bullied Chanel's friends group back then. Yes, Johnstone requires much personal development and help with his addiction and his mental health. But he must also be held accountable for the gravity of his actions. It is my greatest wish that Johnstone is utilizing the time in his comfortable rehab to reflect and reevaluate the crimes he committed in sobriety, to get the help he needs to heal himself and change his ways so that this never happens again. This should be a sobering and life-changing event for him, because it is for all of us who has been fucking devastated by the loss of our dear Chanel. You would never guess it, but in Chanel's short life, she experienced a range of pain and Yet that suffering shaped her to become the loving and gracious light that you all know and will always be. In contrast, Johnstone has lived a life of comfort, of luxury, and privileges that he obviously does not care for or is grateful for, and has taken for granted. To continue to dismiss his behavior, his lifestyle, and overall choices that he has made and will continue to make, if not held accountable, will continue to enable his delusions that he is above law and morality. I believe that a fair sentence in jail would allow him the opportunity to sit with that reality that he's created for himself, and the pain and the suffering that he has caused so many people in this room and beyond. People in his past, in his present, and if he doesn't change, his future. No one deserves to lose their life because someone was ready to throw away theirs. Chanel's life was enwrought for only more greatness, impact, and beauty. And Christopher Ellis Johnstone was ready to throw his life away, and in his path took my sister instead. We know that if this happened to any one of us, Chanel would fight for us wholeheartedly every day. So we will not rest until Chanel receives the justice she deserves, and for whatever laws must change so someone with previous counts of reckless driving and DUI no longer have the freedom to drive and endanger others. This is our family's humble call for you to join us in the fight for justice for Chanel. And so, instead of finishing the night with more amazing stories, I humbly ask you to take time, whether it's now or within the next few weeks, to record yourself sharing those deeply meaningful stories of how she's impacted you positively, and also record that deep pain and impact of her loss in your life, please. Because these videos will serve as evidence, as victim impact, what this person has done to our community. And they need to see, so that we can hold this person accountable, not out of anger or hatred. I wish I felt more anger in this moment, but I don't. I feel pity for Christopher Ellis Johnstone, because he obviously has never been loved. He obviously has never felt the light of someone like Chanel in his life, and maybe if he knew her, maybe he would have changed. So maybe the gift of this grief and loss is that this boy can learn a deep-hearted miracle for himself and find a way to live as Chanel lived, or at least aspire. Of course, no one can be Chanel. No one can bring that light that Shani did. But like I said yesterday, what gift Chanel has given us is that she reminds us that we have this power every day to choose love. We have this power to choose life, regardless of our suffering, of our pain. We have this power to choose every moment to forgive instead of perpetuating pain and hurt and suffering. And I think this is the greatest prayer that we can ask, is to ask, how can we see things differently? How can we be so radically unconditionally loving that we fight for what matters instead of being passive? How can we fight for the life that we have been given instead of numbing away, throwing it away, and not taking it for granted? I just ask that we take a moment of silence for our dear